Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
And this is momentous news.
Precious cargo. The COVID-19 vaccine arrives in BC.
Vaccine is secure.
Also,
by about 9 a.m. on Tuesday the 8th, he had passed away.
Remembering those killed by the virus after 49 more deaths over the weekend. And
I'm so glad.
Just seems like they're always kind of doing what's publicly the most acceptable thing, I guess.
on the move. The plan to relocate hundreds of homeless people from Vancouver's Strathcona Park.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. The arrival of the COVID-19 vaccine in BC comes after another deadly weekend in our province. 49 more people died over the past 3 days, bringing BC's death toll to 647. More than 2,100 new cases were confirmed over the weekend. The province now on the verge of surpassing 43,000 cases. 359 hospitalizations is once again a new record, though the rate at which they've been increasing has slowed considerably. 87 of those patients are in critical care. Number of active cases has dropped dramatically by a couple thousand, now sits at just over 10,000. More than 11,000 people are under active public health monitoring. And as the holidays approach and the desire to see loved ones grows, Dr. Bonnie Henry is reminding everyone of the unintended consequences of well-intentioned plans.
The number of people who have died and the number of families and care providers who have lost loved ones as part of their community over this weekend is a tragedy that all of us feel. No event or gathering is completely safe right now, and we need to be aware of that because the virus continues to circulate in our communities, and tragically, people continue to lose their loved ones to this virus.
In the meantime, BC is on the cusp of a major change in our battle against COVID-19. Frontline healthcare workers are set to receive the vaccine tomorrow. Our Dan Burritt now joins us live with more on that. So Dan, how's the rollout of the vaccine going to work?
Healthcare workers and long-term care home workers in Fraser Health and Vancouver Coastal Health will be the first in line, Mike. The first vaccine vials for BC, about 4,000 doses, will be handed out this week. Dr. Bonnie Henry says the first doses of Pfizer's vaccine arrived in BC late last night. They went through a land border crossing. CBC won't say which one. By next week, Henry says they will be available in every health authority. BC aims to have about 400,000 people, or about 10% of our population, vaccinated by the end of March. Now, the Pfizer vaccine requires 2 doses 3 to 4 weeks apart. Henry says BC will use all of its doses this month rather than holding a second dose in reserve.
Right now, we are at the peak risk in our community, and making sure that we protect as many people as possible with that first dose is our first priority, recognizing that we are receiving more vaccine in higher quantities in the weeks to come. I have a real challenge leaving vaccine in a fridge when there are so many people at risk right now.
So expect to see some of those images of healthcare workers in BC getting vaccinated tomorrow.
All right, Dan, back to the holidays for a moment. We've heard of some people planning to have a pre-Christmas quarantine for families, if you will, so they can actually get together on the big day?
Yes, Mike. People are getting very creative. CBC News has heard even parents are considering pulling kids out of school early so they can do this quarantine ahead of Christmas Day. As we heard, Dr. Henry notes such quarantines are not foolproof, and not everyone has the same definition of quarantine. Henry says if people decide to do this, they need to take extra precautions, especially with elderly loved ones. And
now is dangerous. There is no safe gatherings. This virus doesn't recognize that you've been apart for so long that you really need to see somebody. This virus passes between people. So we pick up the risk from where we've been and we take it to where we go.
Henry says there will be a time when we can take off our masks and when we can hug our loved ones. It's not now. Mike.
All right, Dan, thanks very much. Dan Burritt reporting live tonight. Staff at Big White Ski Resort near Kelowna are being tested for COVID-19. Resort management says the tests are in response to a number of well-attended parties that were hosted by resort staff earlier in the month. So far, 2 people have tested positive, while at least another dozen are in isolation. The resort says it's a concerning situation as many employees live in closed conditions during the ski season. They say several steps have been taken to ensure public safety.
We know through our own contact tracing that there has been no positive test from a staff member that has worked in the environment of the areas that we control. So that being the lift, ski patrol, outdoor operations, ski shop, rental shop, ski school, those areas, we haven't had a positive test in the workplace.
Interior Health did 60 tests on Friday and continued testing the 600 people employed by the resort this season. Back to the vaccines for a second, and as for how the provinces are doling out their vaccine allotment, some are holding back half while others are delivering it all, expecting that more is coming, like BC. Christine Birak looks at the risks and rewards of each.
A growing number of Canadians, including Carol Ann Sevier, say their questions are answered. They want the vaccine.
Yes, they absolutely are, and I'll be there with my sleeves rolled up.
A new survey found nearly half of Canadians want a shot immediately instead of waiting. That's an 8% jump since last month. But how quickly you'll get it may depend on where you live. Some provinces plan to hand out most, if not all, the initial vaccine doses they receive, even though each person requires 2 shots.
You have good protection even after the first dose.
BC says we aren't holding back doses because we want to protect as many people as possible, as quickly as possible. Saskatchewan and New Brunswick have similar pilot plans. Ontario says it is reserving half its doses for now.
I don't actually know what the right thing to do is. Would you just give twice the people 1 dose? I've heard some very compelling arguments for that.
Pfizer's trial data shows 7 days after the second dose, the vaccine was 95% effective in preventing COVID-19. But researchers also found between the first and second dose, nearly half of participants exposed to the virus still became infected, resulting in a vaccine efficacy of 52%.
The big downside of that kind of vaccination strategy is you have to make sure your second dose is showing up on time.
Ottawa says it's constantly in talks with vaccine suppliers, but nothing is certain.
We are still finalizing the precise numbers of the shipments coming next week and the weeks after.
I wouldn't want to take the gamble that I get one vaccine and may not get the second one.
In a statement, Pfizer says we're still learning a lot about the protection offered by COVID-19 vaccines. Its recommendation to the provinces, 2 doses per person guaranteed. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, the wheels are being put in motion to end the tent city at Vancouver's Strathcona Park, where nearly 300 people are living. But some of the campers living there say the solutions from city staff and the Vancouver Park Board aren't enough. Marzara Premji was at the park today and has more.
All quiet at Strathcona Park's tent encampment that houses nearly 300 people, but not the case Sunday night, where Vancouver Fire says 2 explosions and a tent fire happened, all because propane tanks and strategies to stay warm lit a blaze. A danger they hope to remove when they move people indoors to temporary shelters as they search for something more permanent. But community advocate Fiona York says the City of Vancouver's plans to house people in temporary shelters isn't a long-term solution and won't be welcomed by many.
It's also not looking at, again, the entire population of people who are homeless, the additional people who are homeless at this time as a result of the pandemic.
Chrissy Brett, who lives there, says she's disappointed residents of the encampment that have been there since June weren't consulted on this new plan.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me when they're just offering things that are temporary and not at all any type of solution for people.
The City of Vancouver and its park board say they found several properties to bring people inside, including Jericho Hostel and 2400 Motel, but are still working to secure more and a timeline.
We do have a couple of spaces that we need to renovate into indoor shelters. So we are a bit away from actually being able to activate all of the spaces.
The mayor's plan is to put people in a hostel where the bunk beds are close together.
And once the indoor spaces are made available for those staying in the park,
I've been authorized to enforce the park's control bylaw, which, as I said earlier, prohibits against overnight camping, not overnight camping, but daytime and structures set up.
But Chrissy and her boyfriend say they'll be staying put.
We're East Van people. This is East Van. We're not going nowhere. Like, I'm staying right in this neighborhood.
The city says it won't take action until campers have somewhere to go, and it wants campers to know pandemic protocol is top of mind.
We're not sending them into COVID death camps or something, that we're actually trying to find people appropriate, safe shelter that respects the pandemic protocols.
Until the shelters are ready, a timeline the city and Park Board haven't been able to share. They say they'll be bringing in warming tents, showers, and more washrooms, but no timeline on that either. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
Parts of the Dr. Sun Yat-sen Classical Chinese Garden in Vancouver have been vandalized. Black spray-painted words showed up on the white concrete walls of the garden yesterday. On one wall, the graffiti displays the question, "What about the Michaels?" referring to the two Canadians who've been detained in China for more than 2 years. Vancouver police say they are investigating, but there are currently no suspects. And the Vancouver Park Board says it is working to clean it up. Well, some good news for drivers tonight as the province is announcing a break on basic insurance rates starting next spring.
We have moved to enhanced care, which will bring significant savings. And so British Columbians will be able, as of May 1st, to see an average of $400 savings a year for each of the next 2 years.
As you heard, the new enhanced care coverage will save drivers about $400 on their full basic car insurance. ICBC will apply for the decrease with the BC Utilities Commission tomorrow. If approved, basic insurance rates will go down about 15%, which would be the largest drop in rates in more than 40 years. The new rate will be in effect May 1st of next year. A massive landslide has carved what used to be a creek into a small canyon in a remote area north of Campbell River. And a helicopter pilot caught the aftermath on video. Our meteorologist, Johanna Wagstaffe, has been following this story and spoke with a geoscience professor about this slide. So, Jo, what are we learning about what happened there?
Oh, Mike, this is not only an impressive cascading series of natural hazards, but it's a great detective story as well. Let me take you to these incredible images. The helicopter pilot investigating debris near Campbell River. He flew up Butte Inlet to try and get to the source, and that's when he saw this, one of the biggest slides we've seen in years. This is about 7.7 million cubic meters of debris. And it's crazy that we're only just discovering this now, because this event actually happened November 28th. Once these pictures were posted online, geoscientists from around the world basically shared clues to try and pinpoint what and when happened. It wasn't until a scientist in New York actually found a seismic signal equivalent to a magnitude 4.9 earthquake that they were able to pinpoint the event to November 28th. I spoke to Dan Sugar, a geoscientist and associate professor at University of Calgary, and he took me through the series of events starting in Elliott Lake, which runs into part of the watershed that runs into Butte Inlet that empties into the strait. Let me get him to take you through the series of events using Google Maps.
Landslide, you see there's actually a scar from probably an older landslide. And so some new material came down from here. We think about 7 or 8 million cubic meters, which is a large amount of rock, came down, impacted the glacier and into the lake, which cut through the moraine here and then would have made its way downstream and then taken a sharp right turn down the south gate and made its way to tidewater here at Butte Inlet.
And Mike, the tsunami that generated that flood, that generated the turbidity current, estimated to be between 100 and 200 meters.
Yeah, that is enormous. The creek becomes a canyon. And even though this happened in a pretty remote location, tell us why putting this puzzle together is so important.
Well, we didn't see any impact here, as you said, but these fjords and inlets are located all along the west coast of North America. Take a listen to Dan Sugar again about why this is important.
Should one of these events occur during peak cruise season, that is, that has the potential for massive loss of life and property. And so, understanding one of these events when nobody died is, is a lucky set of circumstances, I guess you could say.
So scientists will be trying to fly over the area again, getting to the source where that glacier is to get more information. And I'll keep you posted as we put the puzzle pieces together. But I just think it's amazing. It was heavy rains that caused the landslide in an already swollen glacier lake because of climate change, caused that outburst flood, caused the turbidity flow, and we're just learning about it now. So there you go, Mother Nature.
Mother Nature indeed. A lot going on there. Okay, Joe, thanks very much. We'll see you again in a little bit with the forecast. Okay, now to some incredible footage of a daring river rescue on Vancouver Island from the weekend. Yeah, this was the scene Saturday in Qualicum Beach at Little Qualicum Falls. Aerosmith Search and Rescue says a man in his 30s fell more than 20 meters off a ledge into that raging river. Water was pulling him towards the waterfall. Thankfully, he managed to grab hold of a log and hang on for dear life. He clung to that log in the water for about an hour before being pulled out.
We needed to get this gentleman out right away. You know, it was time was of the essence, so the only viable plan for rescue was to go in.
And then what was it like when you hit the water?
Violent. It's it's aggressive. It took every ounce of energy I had to get him out of there.
Rescuers say this was an extremely dangerous and technically challenging rope rescue. The man was taken to hospital with undisclosed injuries. Amazing. Well, a reminder, you can also watch our newscasts live on the free CBC Gem app. CBC Vancouver is also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Well, a big day in the fight against COVID-19. We take you to Ontario and Quebec, where the first vaccinations were given today. Who got them? And who's next? And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, hobbyists often like a challenge, and that is certainly true for one Lego enthusiast. He decided to take on an iconic Calgary office tower, the Bow Building. 5 years and many curves later, the project is done. Here's a look at how it turned out.
There are about 8,500 Lego bricks. This building was hard, and it's not square, and it was a challenge. I'm Roy Nelson, and I've built the Bow Building out of Lego. I worked on it for 5 years, and I estimate I have 250 man-hours into building this. It took me 10 hours just to figure out how to do the diagrids on the Bow Building. They're done in a vinyl decal. Had to go to a vinyl shop and ask about how I could do that, and they were able to help me out. And then there's 10 hours just to build a wooden crate to transport it in. The most challenging part was in the beginning, trying to figure out how to attach the building to a base plate. Lego is square, very 90 degrees to everything. Trying to make it curved and have it stable enough that it stayed together was the difficult part. I was able to go online, and using the sales diagrams they have to sell the floors, I was able to measure that just in millimeters, and then translate those into actual stud dimensions. And I'm still limited by the dimensions of the Lego pieces. The size of the building really depended on the bricks that I'm using to build it. Never really checked the accuracy perfectly. I mean, it is as scalable as I could make it, but the scale really was determined by the size of Lego bricks. I had always planned to build the head out of Lego, but it would have turned out to be very blocky, which I was not happy about. And a friend just happened to have this Lego head converted into a lamp. So perfect, we hid the cable, we put the lamp inside. The head just replaces Wonderland just perfectly. It's funny, and everybody gets it. In the end, it really was a challenge that, just given that I enjoy Lego, I enjoy the Bow Building in itself, and how do you translate Lego into something that is curved was really the challenge and that I wanted to do.
That is pretty impressive. Okay, the COVID-19 vaccine arrived in our province last night. The first immunizations set for tomorrow. In Ontario and in Quebec, the first people did get vaccinated. Today, we're going to have more on that coming up in just a couple of seconds. Stay right here. Nearly 6,000 new cases have pushed Canada's total COVID infections past 466,000. But in the first tangible sign of hope beyond the pandemic, the country has officially begun its largest mass vaccination program in history. As Hannah Thibodeau tells us tonight, the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine that's already reached the arms of the first few Canadians within 24 hours of arriving across the border.
This is a big shot of hope. 5 frontline healthcare workers in Toronto were some of the first Canadians to get their COVID-19 vaccine.
I'm excited. We have been waiting for this for so long, and I'm here now, and I'm so thankful.
The very first person in Canada to get the vaccine was long-term care resident, 89-year-old Giselle Levesque in Quebec City. Nearly 80% of deaths in the first wave occurred in long-term care and retirement homes.
I felt emotional because I know how worried and anxious families and healthcare workers are all across the country, how we've all worked so hard as a country.
This is the major tool to help getting life back to normal after 9 traumatic months of shutdowns, isolation, and thousands dying from the disease. Alberta expects to get its first doses to be delivered tomorrow.
We'll begin immunizing ICU doctors and nurses, respiratory therapists, and eligible continuing care staff in Edmonton and in Calgary.
So you've had dress rehearsals already.
In Winnipeg, no vaccine has been delivered there yet, but they are preparing for it, like all of the locations across the country.
You know, this is not the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's kind of somebody lighting a match to light a light and help us see our way out of the abyss and the darkness we've had over this past almost a year now.
Health officials say that this first batch is like a trial run for the larger shipments of vaccines still to arrive. However, there is confusion as to when that vaccine might be on the ground and exactly how many doses, something government officials at all levels are continuing to work out. Hannah Thibodeau, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, Canada is announcing $485 million in new money to help vulnerable populations around the globe during the pandemic.
The Government of Canada will contribute $230 million to procure COVID-19 therapies for use in developing countries, responding to urgent needs identified by the Access to COVID-19 Tools Accelerator, or the ACT Accelerator.
This urgent part of the funding is to help minimize deaths and severe illness from coronavirus and reduce the burden on healthcare systems. The remaining $255 million will go towards supporting the World Health Organization's ACT Accelerator initiative. It's an international coalition of nations and organizations working to make COVID-19 treatments more accessible and affordable. Manitoba is tapped to receive extra doses of the Moderna vaccine. That's because the province has a higher proportion of First Nations people in remote communities. And while the province is seeing its lowest case counts in weeks, in the community of Shamattawa, the First Nation, the virus is out of control. Austin Gravish was there.
They're only allowed 5 minutes outside.
In an isolated community, unprecedented separation.
3 more minutes.
These are 2 COVID patients. The local rules mean they can only be outside for 5 minutes. Carl Kanabi makes sure they don't stay out any longer.
I've been working here for like a week and 4 days and watching these guys so they don't have to run away.
The community school has become the command center for this operation. People who test positive for COVID-19 are being put in a new self-isolation center inside the school's gym. The military have cots set up here so they can sleep, and they're also setting up classrooms for people who need to self-isolate. Shamattawa Chief Eric Redhead says about 1/3 of his community has tested positive. At least 1,000 people live on reserve. The chief is now working on the assumption everyone here has the virus.
Literally the entire community is a contact, right? Because we're so confined. We have one school, one grocery store.
We are worried about getting COVID. I'm worried that my kids will get sick.
My mom has it, and my little brother has it, and my sister-in-law has it.
About 60 members of the armed forces are now here to help. They will do wellness checks and contact tracing.
The thing that is really unique about this is that we are in Canada helping Canadians. These are our people and we're at home helping each other.
Shanahan Redhead is taking food to people who can't go out.
They're really happy we can't, because they can't leave their house and they're really scared of leaving them because they don't want to catch COVID. They don't want their family to have it or anyone next to them.
I pray that everybody gets better, and people listen to the protocols.
Including a mandatory curfew forcing people to stay inside after 7 at night. But until then, there's always a little time for fun. Austin Grabish, CBC News, Shamattawa.
The U.S. Electoral College has formally confirmed U.S. voters picked Joe Biden as their next president. But Donald Trump is still refusing to concede defeat. Will Denslow has this report tonight from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
The electors of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have cast 20 votes for the Honorable Joseph R. Biden for President of the United States and 20 votes for the Honorable Kamala D. Harris for Vice President of the United States.
In a unanimous decision, Pennsylvania's electors awarded the state's 20 Electoral College votes to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The vote is procedural, but President Trump's refusal to concede defeat has made it more contentious. In Michigan, the state's legislative buildings were shut, citing credible security threats ahead of the vote. 538 electors are voting across the country to officially confirm Joe Biden as the president-elect.
The people have spoken.
One of Pennsylvania's electors, Rick Bloomingdale, says it's a significant moment.
The electoral vote was certified today. It'll go to the archivists of the United States of America. The Senate will open it up. They have no choice but to read off the approved slate of electors in Pennsylvania. And even if some of the House members challenge it, then, there'll be a vote and they'll lose again. And, Joe Biden will be inaugurated at 12 noon on January 20th.
Joe Biden won the state of Pennsylvania by around 80,000 votes, and electors here say they were fulfilling the will of the people. Ahead of the vote, around a dozen of the president's supporters, peacefully protesting at the Capitol building behind me, said they were praying for a miracle, but to no avail. The president says he'll keep fighting, but his path to the Oval Office has been dealt another monumental blow. William Denslow for CBC News, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
And U.S. President Donald Trump says one of his strongest allies, William Barr, will be leaving his post as Attorney General just before Christmas. Barr, in a letter that Trump posted on Twitter, says his last day will be December 23rd. Move comes as the outgoing president continues to push baseless claims about the election he lost in November. Trump had publicly expressed anger over Barr's recent statement that his department found no widespread election fraud that would change the outcome. A deadly weekend with more and more people dying of COVID-19. Among the 647 British Columbians who've succumbed to the illness, we introduce you to artist and musician Anton Kolstee. His story is next.
In Vancouver, it's an especially sentimental New Year's Eve for a group of forestry workers. They're saying goodbye to one of the oldest sawmills in British Columbia. The sawmill has been a familiar sight in the heart of the city, but as 1984 rolls in, the old sawmill just doesn't fit in with Vancouver's new skyline. Georges Tromel has this story.
Driving to downtown Vancouver in the morning, the Bay Forest Products sawmill has always been a reminder of what this province's economy is about. Wood. But the sawmill is about to disappear. Expo 86 is coming, and with it the beginning of the complete transformation of the False Creek waterfront. There will be office towers, residential blocks, and parks. Over the next 25 years, Vancouver will be coming of age.
Well, I suppose we can't stand in the face of progress.
Patricia Roy is a historian. She says sawmills have been here for more than 100 years.
This was the industrial area of Vancouver. This was the industrial heartland of the city.
False Creek is a slender inlet of very calm and sheltered water. It was the ideal place to collect the logs coming down the coast. It became a jumble of sawmills and related plants. This sawmill was one of the most efficient on the West Coast. Here, they processed 500,000 feet of lumber a day, and during the last recession, the plant kept right on working. Tom Nielsen will be going to work somewhere else, but it won't be the same.
It's hard to leave. It's very hard to leave. You put close to 25 years of your life into a place. It's difficult to leave old friends.
This is the last. This is the end of an era.
Larry Bukovitz worked here for almost 30 years.
I feel sad, and so do 220 other people in this mill. We all feel sad.
It's a good job here.
Very sad. You know, I had people in the mill here actually in tears.
Last night they cut the last log. Workers said goodbye to the mill and to each other. Soon the machinery will be auctioned off and bulldozers will be preparing the site for the BC Pavilion. After the fair, it will house a forest center as part of its permanent exhibitions. But for the workers, progress will still feel bittersweet. Georges Tremel, CBC News, Vancouver.
Some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me when they're just offering things that are temporary and not at all any type of solution for people.
The wheels are being put in motion to end the tent city at Vancouver's Strathcona Park, where more than 300 people are living. City of Vancouver says once indoor space has been secured for the encampment's residents, the Park Board will move to enforce the city's no camping bylaw. Plans are underway to use the Jericho Hostel in West Point Grey and the 2400 Motel on Kingsway as temporary indoor space to shelter those living in the park.
I can't tell you how exciting this is to know that this start of this new phase of being able to protect people is beginning here in BC.
The first doses of Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine arrived in BC late last night, with immunizations set to begin tomorrow. The first vials of the vaccine, some 4,000 doses, will be distributed this week to frontline healthcare workers and long-term care home workers in the Vancouver coastal and Fraser Health regions. It will be available next week in every health authority across the province. And Dr. Bonnie Henry is reporting 49 deaths from COVID-19 over the weekend. 2,146 people in BC tested positive over the past 3 days. There are 359 people in hospital, 87 of those patients in critical care. And with the holidays approaching, Dr. Henry reiterated that no event or gathering is free of risk. And health officials want more data before recommending the coronavirus vaccine to pregnant women. But as cases surge, new research shows why expectant mothers should be extra vigilant about avoiding COVID-19. Briar Stewart explains.
Let's start from the beginning of...
Amrita Cha is taking precautions in her second pregnancy that she never did when she had her son 6 years ago.
I stopped going for grocery shoppings and any gatherings.
She's worried about contracting COVID-19. New research suggests pregnant women are at a higher risk of complications.
It's early information. We have to take it with caution, but it does give us a trend to increased hospitalization and ICU admission.
According to the analysis, just over 2% of pregnant women who catch COVID end up being admitted to the ICU. For women in the same age group who aren't pregnant, it's less than 0.5%. Researchers say it's important to note that the absolute risk is still very low. While there's an increased chance of preterm birth, there is some good news.
It looks like this virus doesn't readily pass through to the fetus inside.
Researchers say the Canadian findings are similar to what's being seen in other countries. It's also not surprising. Previous studies involving the flu and H1N1 have shown that if a woman is pregnant, she's at risk of developing a more severe infection. None of it is surprising to Jennifer Lee.
I'm asthmatic. In my previous pregnancies, when I have gotten even just a cold, it's been like double worse.
Experts say women can develop more severe infections because pregnancy affects a woman's immune system, circulation, and lung capacity. While ICU admissions are extremely rare, they are devastating. An Abbotsford mother is still on a ventilator after delivering her baby by an emergency C-section last month.
It was the most awful thing that happened to any woman, giving a birth to a baby at that stage to present.
Which is why, even though she knows the risk is still very small, Ja plans to keep isolating herself until her baby is due in April. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
Anton Kolstee died of COVID-19 on December 8th at the age of 71, but that is not his story. He was also a musician, a mentor, an intellect and ally, and most importantly, a father and a husband. Joel Ballard has more on Kolstee's legacy.
Leave a legacy of impact. It's a lesson Julian Kolstee learned from his father's life.
What matters most is the way that you've touched the lives of your community and the people around you.
To some, Anton Kolstee may best be remembered as the lead guitarist of the psychedelic rock band United Empire Loyalists in the late 60s. Part of Vancouver's 4th Avenue counterculture.
They avoided recording singles or albums because they didn't want to sell out. That wasn't part of the culture.
Instead, opting for long jam sessions and playing major bills, like opening for the Grateful Dead at the Pender Auditorium. But ever the intellect, Kolstee's passion for music collided with academia. He lived and worked with Indigenous communities in Bella Bella and Bella Coola along BC's coast, focusing on their music and culture as he completed a PhD in ethnomusicology.
He built a relationship and a connection and gained the trust and the respect of the elders there.
In the 80s, Kolstee was hired as a First Nations counselor at Carson Graham Secondary in North Vancouver.
In our experience in school, oftentimes we faced racism, blatant racism because we're Indigenous, and it was very frustrating, and he made it safe for us to come here and enjoy our experience at high school.
Kolstee developed trust with students and elders of the Squamish Nation, learning their music and culture, becoming fluent in their language and its preservation. In return, he was honored with the name Skauk, the Raven.
I will always consider Anton one of my first mentors who helped shape me into the leader I am today.
Kolstee's impact never more evident than in his passing, when the condolences began to pour in, especially from former Indigenous students.
The things that they have to say about my dad, about the work that he did, and about the care and the time and the attention and focus that he gave them, words can't describe what it means to me.
But Kolstee's career was cut short on Father's Day 1999. He suffered a major heart attack, leaving him in a coma with a brain injury.
It affected his mental capacity, his physical capacity, social capacity.
After 20 years in an independent living center, he was moved into the Capilano Care Center long-term facility in March. But in the last month, the facility was hit hard by COVID-19. Kolstee caught the virus.
By about 9 a.m. on Tuesday the 8th, he had passed away.
I'm a Native student counselor in North Vancouver. I teach Squamish language.
When Julian thinks of his father, there's one memory that beats as strong as when he was a child.
The way that he'd pick me up and he'd hold me and he'd have me close to him, and he was very affectionate, and he was never afraid to show love. And I remember his touch.
a Squamish paddle song, in honor of Anton Kolstee's journey into the spirit world. Joel Ballard, CBC News, North Vancouver.
In the push to get people to buy local this holiday season of no-touch delivery, one woman has come up with a plan. What's not Amazon? That's next. 20 to 7, a live look at snowy Revelstoke tonight. No trains rolling through for us right now. As for us on the West Coast, we're in for a wet week, very wet. How much rain can we expect? Johanna's forecast coming next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for connecting with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving. Thank you for raising a record-breaking amount of money in a year where food banks need support the most.
The Market Report is brought to you by Fortis BC. We've got even bigger rebates. Whoa! On select high-efficiency equipment for business, but only for a limited time.
Europe's most active volcano is putting on quite a show right now. Mount Etna in Italy began erupting last night. Volcanic ash from the eruption raining down on nearby villages, covering cars, streets, and balconies. The more than 3,000-meter high Mount Etna bursts into action several times a year. Its last major eruption was back in 1992. Quite the show, Joe. All right, let's check in with Joe now on the forecast. I guess wet is the theme for the balance of the week.
Yeah, we've got a different kind of show out here on the West Coast.
Yes.
The Pacific Stream of Systems show. One after the other will be moving onshore over the next few days. So yeah, gear yourself up for a wet week. But we did have about, 20 minutes of blue sky this afternoon. We'll try and find the breaks between systems as we head through each day. Let me take you through the current temperatures. It's a mild system. So we're starting off with temperatures above seasonal of 6 right now. At YVR, 4 out towards Abbotsford and hanging on to a 4 in through Nanaimo. The next system is already knocking on our door. You can see the rain beginning to move in to Vancouver Island. Cloud cover back for Vancouver. This is going to bring us rain through the overnight. It's also bringing big winds tonight to North Vancouver Island, central coastal sections, Haida Gwaii, up to 100 km/h gusts overnight. And winter storm warnings issued for the Coquihalla. This is for tomorrow through to Wednesday morning. 30 centimeters at the summit. This is a major winter storm. Winter driving conditions absolutely in effect over the next 48 hours. Taking us through that moisture here in Vancouver, taking you through early Tuesday morning. You can see it's going to be wet through the early morning hours, tapering to showers by mid-morning, but definitely still some heavier rain embedded in that. We could get some breaks for the second half of the day, not as likely to see the sunshine, and things will fill in again as we head into Wednesday afternoon or sort of mid-morning. We'll get that third round of rain. I'll try and keep track of them all. So rainfall totals just through to tomorrow night. They could be up to 60 millimeters as we head in through the inlet. The highest amounts towards the North Shore, Tri-Cities, but most of Metro Vancouver possibly getting 20 plus millimeters for tomorrow. Okay, here's that big picture. The first storm moving inland tomorrow. Notice all the blue inland getting a lot of snow, not just the Coquihalla, but southern Okanagan looking to get 5 to 10 centimeters, a good 5 to 10 for Prince George and the Kootenays. Terrace and Stewart also looking for fresh snow tonight and tomorrow morning. And then Wednesday mid-morning, there's system number 3, and we're only at midweek. So snowfall, again, will be quite heavy for the mountains. Snow level staying around 1,000 meters, so we will get more snow for our coastal mountains as well. Tomorrow's forecast right across the province looking warm, well, above seasonal, I should say, not exactly warm. The exception is Peace. You are well below the seasonal, where we do have temperatures in the minus double digits for the next couple of days, still in that Arctic air mass. Our forecast looking very soggy indeed, just a slight chance of a glimmer of hope tomorrow afternoon. It's mild though, right through to the weekend. And if I try and dig into the long range forecast, I do see a change coming for next week. I'm thinking maybe Monday and Tuesday, we might change weather patterns. So I'll keep you posted on that. I know we're all trying to think of ways to get outdoors as COVID-19 lockdowns have also driven down greenhouse gas emissions across the globe. I'm very interested in this story.
But the pandemic is creating its own kind of pollution. Discarded masks. Researchers at Oceans Asia estimate 1.56 billion discarded masks are going to enter the world's oceans this year. That means an additional 4,000 to 6,000 metric tons of marine plastic pollution.
That mask didn't dissolve and become part of the ocean. It broke down into microplastic, and that microplastic then works its way through the food web, having a devastating impact at every level.
If they're improperly discarded, some masks can remain in the environment for up to 450 years. That's not a good thing.
Yeah, we were just making some progress on that too. So information we need to know though. For the growing number of Canadians who want to shop local this season and always, and help retailers in their city, of course, survive the pandemic.
There is a new website that is easy and convenient to use as Amazon, except as Nazima Walji reports, it's not Amazon.
Everything you'll see in the boutique, from the way, the croissants are made. When COVID hit, Morgan Saba knew boosting sales online was the only way to survive.
Obviously with COVID, we've decided to push going online faster than we had anticipated.
And over Black Friday weekend, she noticed a spike in sales.
Every day I'm sort of tracking where are we obtaining our traffic from. So is it from Instagram? Is it from a specific site? And I was checking and I saw that 79% of our traffic came on from a site called Not Amazon. And when I first looked at the site, I was like, oh, I've never heard of this.
This is just the home page, and you basically can just scroll through. You can submit a business.
But NotAmazon.ca founder Ali Haberstraw says the idea behind the website that started with a list is catching on.
I posted the spreadsheet, I guess, like a week ago, just on Instagram, and I thought literally like 100 people would see it. And it became very popular. It was very nice, but I had no idea it would blow up the way it has.
It's an initiative to help support small local businesses.
It's almost like a digital mall directory almost. Like it's broken up into categories where you can sort of just basically online shop, but just exclusively through local. And I just made it so it kind of made the convenience of Amazon, but only with local things. So I think the biggest issue with people not shopping local is Amazon is more convenient. So I think that making it convenient kind of removes the ability to have that excuse.
And showcases Toronto's diversity.
Toronto is such like an embarrassment of riches for culture, both like in quality and quantity. So I think that people maybe assume that it's not going anywhere. And I think with the last year, we realized it very much can.
The website's expanded to include cities like Calgary, Halifax, and Hamilton, and there are plans to launch in Ottawa. Green Jar owner Tanis Bundy found her store on the list as well.
It's really great to see that our community members are supporting small businesses. It's really important. It's an integral part of the community.
Thanks to this, we had a lot of people come into the boutique. We had a lot of people call, order online. So it's been really good for us.
In a tough year for small businesses, every effort helps. Nazima Walji, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, there have been some popular pastimes during the pandemic: puzzles, knitting, cooking, and baking. Why those with a green thumb have turned to rare exotic plants. Next.
You have to stop canoodling at the library.
If you're on TikTok, this might ring a bell. It's one of the trends Anne-Claire Davis and Cody Kelly are using to connect with a younger audience about the do's and don'ts at Calgary Public Library branches.
We actually saw two teens kissing with their masks on, so that's how we got the idea of canoodling.
Nobody wants to see that.
TikTok is a video-based social media platform that uses sounds and trends to tell stories, share viral dances, or poke fun. The platform can be risque, but the library keeps its content family-friendly, humorous, and informative. They have videos on crafting, book lists, and PSAs. Kelly says they've had the most success reminding teens how to be safe at the library.
Just the social distancing and the masks was something that was for sure we wanted to highlight.
Some of the library TikTok's most watched videos now have tens of thousands of views, making the library experience more relatable to a young audience and meeting them where they're at. Helen Pike, CBC News, Calgary.
The beer has several nods towards the friendship, which started after Boston sent aid to Halifax in 1917, following the Halifax explosion. The taste profile of the beer in itself is a history lesson.
Fermented on, of course, a Belgian yeast to note the fact that there was a Belgian ship involved in the explosion. And of course, it was also brewed with a little bit of spruce tips to kind of give it that quintessential big spruce touch, Nova Scotia touch, if you will.
The collaboration started when the two breweries connected following the tree lighting ceremony in Boston last year. Nova Scotia has sent a tree to Boston since the 1970s. In recent years, the send-off and lighting of the tree has been met with great fanfare and celebration. Due to the pandemic, this year was much quieter. White says after discussions with Harpoon Brewery, both agreed to create a beer that further connects the two cities.
The tree lighting itself has always been part of the holiday traditions here in Boston, and it's a big deal. I think there has been a little bit of a knowledge gap. You know, people know about the people know that, there's this giant Christmas tree and it's beautiful, and maybe that it comes from Canada. But they don't really know, or a lot of people don't really know the backstory. And as soon as people learn the backstory, it provides such a profound connection.
In a year that has been difficult for many, White says highlighting compassion is important.
All good beers should have a good story behind them. We've kind of piggybacked on a wonderful one here, and we've, inadvertently done so in a year where good stories like this, that focus on kindness, that focus on friendship, that focus on a story of support and camaraderie between two countries, two cities, can be at the forefront.
The beer is available both in the United States and across Canada. Matthew Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox. This holiday season, kindness is needed more than ever. Do you know someone who's gone above and beyond? Enter them into our Acts of Kindness contest, and they could win a CBC prize pack. Learn how to enter at cbc.ca/acts of kindness. And warm your home with holiday favorites and luminous carols with Corleone Men's Choir. RSVP today for this all-digital concert from the comfort of home at corleone.org.
Well, many people have taken up new interests during the pandemic, one of them being rare and popular houseplants.
Yes, I think you have a few, although I don't know if they're rare or exotic. But you've got a few.
Yeah, I mean, I worked on this one, but I try and keep this one off camera. This is my most rare one, so
Fantastic.
yes.
Yeah, because suppliers say the combination of, being stuck at home and wanting to spruce up spaces has resulted in the strongest sales of those things in years. And as the CBC found out, it's driving the cost of the plants through the roof.
I've never experienced it until the last year, really since I've been here. The demand on tropicals is crazy right now.
This one here is actually one of my favorites that I acquired during this pandemic times. It grows locally in Cebu City, and that's where my mom is born. That's her home city. So that's why it's one of my favorites.
There are a lot of people joining the hobby, and then they see the big collectors with these beautiful rare plants, and they just want the same. It's similar to iPhone drops or, Supreme limited edition, where people want to line up and get the limited item. It's very Instagrammable. People like to post it on Instagram and get a lot of likes, because I think plant community, they're very supportive of each other.
We're all trying to get the next new thing, and largely it's influenced by social media. You're seeing them pop up on social media, and you're like, can we produce that at a large scale for our customers?
It still kind of goes down to plants that offer more. Plants that have interesting color schemes, interesting veining, unlike a nerve plant where there's multiple different colors, so people can start collecting different things. Some of these things, like this particular philodendron gray, we didn't know even how popular it was until we took a picture and put online and people went crazy. We kind of stumbled upon this one. So I'm watching those websites and I'm following those things on Instagram just to see what's popular, what do I see that will match up to something that people are looking for.
Okay, this is quite impressive. I think this is next level for me, Mike. I think this is my 2021 goal. I think I've got a ways to go till I get there, I would say.
We're going to start somewhere. Looks fantastic. I'm terrible.
Thank you.
I'd kill everything. They'd all die.
No green thumb, eh?
No green thumb. All right, Joe, thanks very much. Get back to the plants. We're out of here. Dan's here at 11 after the National. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Good night.